Okay, everybody, how you doing today? We are going to look at some pretty cool features in Photoshop for editing photos a little bit differently. We're going to cover cloning, healing, AI generation, and effects today. So we'll try to get this all done in a relatively short amount of time. We've got two images that we're working on. We got this image called Blue Lagoon, and we've got a logo that we're going to use as well. In the image here for the Blue Lagoon, we are going to start with some cloning. And this is a technique we haven't looked at yet, but sometimes in a picture you're going to want to make some changes to the picture. And if we look here in this particular picture, we got this pole, this rail that's kind of coming out of sort of the belly of this girl, and it looks kind of weird. All right, so if we were making, let's say, an advertisement for this place, we would probably want to remove that, all right, just so it looks a little better. So the way you could do that easily is you could take this tool over here called the clone stamp, and this is the traditional tool that has been used kind of forever with Photoshop to remove things. I'm going to show you how it works. Select the clone stamp, go up here to your brush options, set the hardness to about 80% or so, and the way this tool works, it's kind of weird until you get the hang of it, is you're going to think about what you want this to be replaced with. Okay, so we're going to go and take this water here. This water is what we're going to want to replace this bar with. So we're going to put our cursor over here in the water that we want to take to replace this. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold Option. And you'll see that when you hold Option, it's going to turn into sort of a crosshair. Okay, and when you do that, you can click and then let go. And what you've just done is set the reference point. And you'll see that now when you bring this over here, what it's doing is it's referencing the water back here, but it's allowing us to paint by clicking. It's allowing us to paint that water over on this side. Now I noticed one thing that doesn't look great. We're going to undo. We might want to adjust our brush a bit. It's too hard. So maybe I will go down to about a 25%, because you do want it to kind of just sort of blend with the areas around. Okay? And so you'll see now that as we paint out the rail, got to be careful when you get close to her, it's replaced that water with the same water from over here, and it's kind of followed our direction as we did that, and it's been adding the ripples and stuff that it found along here in this area. Now we could go and sort of tweak this and make it better. We could, make these lines follow better. You spend a lot of time making it perfect, but if we zoom out, you will see now that that rail is gone, and it looks relatively believable. All right, next, let's look at the healing tool. On the back of this girl, you'll notice she has, maybe it looks like a mole, not really sure, but she's got some sort of a mark on her back. And the healing tool, the purpose of the healing tool is to remove blemishes. And it works really, really well for that specifically. All right, so if you look for the tool that looks like a Band-Aid, you've got two of them. You got three of them actually. You got a remove tool, a healing brush, and a spot healing tool. Now, I like the spot healing brush. It's pretty smart. So if you click that one, it's the one with the sort of selection beside it. All you really have to do is click on the thing that you want to remove, and it will figure out what you're trying to remove. Just make sure that your brush isn't too big, because if your brush is too big, it's not going to work well. It's not gonna hide that. You can pretty much remove any blemish you see just by clicking. And the way this is working is it's comparing the pixels nearby and then filling it with sort of an average color inside to get rid of those marks. And that is one of the techniques, or one of the ways that you know, when you Photoshop somebody, you make them look fake because you remove all their blemishes. That's where the term Photoshop plastic people comes from. Okay, the next feature I'm going to show you is really cool. One of the newer features in Photoshop is the addition of AI. And what AI will allow us to do is it will allow us to add or remove things intelligently. So without us knowing anything about Photoshop, let's say we wanted to make this more dramatic by having northern lights in the sky. So what we could do is we could take our selection tool, which is the second tool down. All right, we got a couple different types of selection tools. We've got a rectangular selection tool. We're going to go with that one. We can also make selections using these tools like the polygon or the lasso just by clicking our selection. But in this case, we're going to use the rectangular. And what we're going to do is we're going to just select the sky, just like this. Okay? Now, if you don't get it perfect, just remember you can do Command D to deselect and try again. But basically, I want you to select the sky just like that. Okay? Now, like I said, the neat thing about the latest version of Photoshop is it has this thing called Generative Fill. If you don't see it, you can go up to Edit and Generative Fill. It's going to be there as well. And the way that Generative Fill works is it allows you to use AI within Photoshop to generate whatever you want. So in this case, I'm going to put Northern Lights. And I'm going to hit Generate. It'll take a couple seconds, but Photoshop will do its magic. And then what it's going to do is it's going to intelligently replace the sky with Northern Lights. Okay, and so you'll see that it did a pretty good job. It kind of did something weird with the building here. But the neat thing about this is it gives you options. So you'll see that this says 1 out of 3, and you can click next, and you can look at another variation. Or you can click next, and there's another one. Now, if you want more, let's say 3 isn't enough and none of these look good, even though I'm kind of leaning towards this number 2 looks okay, you can hit Generate again. And what it will do is it's going to give you more options for you to look at and compare and sort of decide which one's best. Now, that one's pretty cool. That one's cool too. All right, and AI, that one's my favorite actually. It did a really great job. AI is pretty amazing because it does a lot of work for us here. It does it in a very intelligent way. Without having to know anything about Photoshop, AI can really make some pretty amazing things. All right, so there's the sky replaced. Now, that looks pretty awesome. All right, obviously the water doesn't make sense because if this was at night, then this would probably be darker, but that's okay. You know, let's be specific about something we want to add in the water. So let's say I'm going to select this area. And basically any area you select, that's the size it's going to make it. All right, so say we wanted something in the water. Generative Fill, once again. I don't know. Let's put a killer great white shark. And we're going to generate it in the water. And you will see that, oh, it didn't like our prompt, probably because it had killer in there. Doesn't like weapons, doesn't like anything, like if you put dead person or anything weird, it's probably going to throw it out. So we'll put great white shark. Generate. This is not a very safe resort. And it's pretty amazing what you can add to your drawing using AI. So that's okay. It's kind of weird. Okay, that I don't know if that's a great white, but it's still a pretty cool shark. That one's decent. You know, AI always does weird things. It especially with hands and faces and stuff. Until it gets better. But this is kind of cool. I like this one. Got this shark sort of floating, coming at the girl. And you'll notice that these layers get added. These are the layers that it adds for for your AI elements. Now, I'm trying to find it here, but if you ever want to go and see your variations, okay, under properties here, you can scroll down and you can go back to other versions of it just by clicking and going through what we had from before. You could also do it in here. But this is really, really handy. Again, saves a lot of time. You don't have to know a lot about Photoshop, but it does do a great job. Generally, it matches the proportions, it matches the coloring and the angle and everything really, really well. All right, so AI does a great job. So you could keep going. You could keep adding stuff in here. You could have like, you know, you could be very specific. Like I could put something here and I could say like floating red garbage. And I could generate that, and it'll pick up on colors, and whatever you tell it, it's going to take as cues for what it's going to create. So floating red garbage, you know, I could put like a sunken ship if I wanted to, whatever, you know. Oh, I don't see it. Oh, you know what? Hang on, maybe because it's on a layer below. I don't see it. Oh, that's not really. I guess that's floating red garbage. It doesn't look like much. I don't know about these other ones. I don't see anything, but you know, it's not perfect. So I might have had to have been more specific, but we'll leave that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at effects. So let's say this was an advertisement for this place, and you know, it was going to be up on a billboard. So don't close this, but we're going to go to this logo that I have, and we're going to move it, we're going to drag it and bring it into Photoshop, okay, just like that. And let's say we want it to be up in the corner, so we're going to do Command T, we're going to shrink it, and we're going to put it up in the corner, maybe somewhere here, okay. Now you'll notice that it looks pretty good, but sometimes when you've got an image that maybe is darker or whatever, it blends in with the background, and you might want something to make it stand out. And in this particular case, we want to use some of the elements that we have in this picture to make this more interesting, okay? And you could do this with anything. You could do this with anything that's on its own layer. So down at the bottom, you're going to have this little option at the bottom of layers called FX. These are called layer styles. Okay, and I'm going to show you some cool stuff that's within here. Now, if you click it, there are a lot of choices. Let's just start with drop shadow, which is probably the most basic one. You get this crazy window that opens up, okay? And what I like to do is kind of move it off to the side so I can see what it's doing to my artwork. And so, first of all, slider for opacity. Don't see much changing here. But you'll notice that when you change the distance, you can see the shadow underneath. You can change the angle here, so you can change the direction of the shadow. Okay. The spread, which is how wide the shadow is, the size of the shadow, so how soft the shadow is. Okay. And you can make a lot of adjustments here to create a really nice drop shadow on that. And again, that's going to help it so that it stands out from the background. Okay, let's do another one. Let's go to FX one more time. Let's say we wanted sort of a Northern Lights glow underneath it, so it looks like it's you know, some kind of northern light behind it. So outer glow is a great one. So we click that one and pick a color from here and choose one of the greens in the Northern Lights, like one of these bright greens. Then we're going to go to these two options here. Well, actually, before we get to that, let's bring up our opacity. You just start to see it poking out around the side. But this is where the magic really happens. Under Elements, when you go to Spread and Size. Okay, so let's start with Size. You're going to see that you can really add this cool glow to that logo. And it's going to match... the Northern Lights really well because we took the color from the Northern Lights to create that glow. All right, so you can do really neat things with effects. I recommend trying each one and seeing what they do because there's some really neat stuff. All right, so there we go. That is our new advertisement for the Blue Lagoon. I don't know if I would be going there, but it looks pretty awesome. And again, I know that AI kind of takes some of the challenge out of it. It does the work for you in a lot of respects, but it is a really handy tool. And when it's used creatively, it can be put to your advantage. And definitely, it's a useful tool in the sort of artist toolkit. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.